I'll give you one other example of this kind of misinformation thing. Take Real ID. I had someone say to me today, well, when you have these Real ID licenses with a machine-readable zone, which is really it's the sequence of letters and numbers that everybody has on their passport, it's going to be used to track people. People can skim it, and they can steal it, and then they can use it to follow you around. Now, this is a fantasy. This is just not true. Machine-readable zone can't be skimmed. It is, now, someone was thinking of an RFID chip, but we're not putting RFID chips in. So that was myth number one. Myth number two, because you can swipe the machine-readable zone, you're going to get information about people that's private. The reason that's a myth is because it's nothing more than the information on the face of the license. I already have a reader for the license. It's called my eye. And I can read what's on your license. So therefore, there's nothing I'm going to get out of the MRZ that I can't get from the face of the license. And finally, the track where you go issue just baffles me. Because, you know, if you present your license to get on a plane, we're not going to keep that in a big database that every time you get on a plane or every time you go into a store and someone wants a license. There's no big database for that. The truth is there is a good way to track people, and that's their credit card records. So if you hack into someone's credit card record, that will be a way of tracking where a person's movements are. But that's not what we're about. That's the problem for Visa and MasterCard. So when you unpack each of these arguments, they fall to pieces. The difficulty we have is when we're struggling about the debate, the ACLU and people of like mind simply throw out, it's going to track everybody. And, you know, I feel like I have to run around and correct the record a lot. And that has made it a difficult debate. But I come back to this fundamental point. We spent, I don't know how much money with the 9/11 Commission. It was not the first commission to deal with terrorism. But I believe, if my memory serves me, that the reason we viewed it as different was because we had suffered 9/11. We realized we couldn't afford to treat these things anymore like academic exercises where Gilmore writes something or Hart and Redmond writes something, we read it, we throw it on the shelf. So everybody took it seriously. It was a bestseller. One of their top recommendations is you got to have secure identification. And for us to, you could debate that, but it ought to be debated honestly. If people believe that you should have a right to, for example, get on a plane anonymously without saying who you are, you know, that's a very libertarian view. I'm willing to respectfully, you know, hear that view. I disagree with it. But at least it's coherent. Now, I venture to say if you offer people a choice between Airline 1 and Airline 2, Airline 1, we check people to see if they're on the watch list. Airline 2, anybody can get on without giving their name. I know which airline's going to have a lot more passengers, and I know which airline I'm going to put my kids on. But at least that's a logical discussion. What's not logical to me is to concede that you have to have identification to get on a plane or get in the building. But then to make it say, but you ought to be able to easily forge the identification. You have a right to pretend to be somebody else. That's just wrong. The most liberal judge who ever lived never said you have a right to defraud people or to lie about who you are. So that's when I begin to feel we've strayed very far from the message of the 9/11 Commission. And, you know, shame on us if we don't do everything reasonable to plug the gaps that we so painfully learned about 6 years ago. Sorry that was a long speech, but you know, this is a lot of what we're doing this year, is trying to have an honest debate about what are the issues, so that people understand that this is not invasion of privacy. This actually protects privacy if you have an honest statement of what it is we're proposing to do, as opposed to a chicken little the sky is falling statement.